All right, here we are. We are back on Wheel of SNES, episode 11, where we drew Bram Stoker's Dracula for the Super Nintendo, of course. Uh, Based off of the movie that came out in the 90s, I think it was a Francis Ford Coppola film. Don't know what to think about it. I mean, I can tell you I never played this game, Josh. I would expect it to be a lot like Castlevania, perhaps, going in, if I had to guess. I mean, that's kind of the blueprint that's set out for vampire games. So,
Yeah.
no, not huge Castlevania fan. I mean, I like it. I'm just really bad at it. So, I guess we'll start out and let me tell you what the back of the box tells us about this game, Josh.
Okay.
Bram Stoker's Dracula for the Super Nintendo goes straight for the jugular with spine-chilling action so real you won't believe your eyes. As vampire hunter Jonthan Harker, you're plunged deep into the world of the undead in this ultimate interactive movie. 7 terrifying levels, each with various day and night sections, plus incredible 3D graphics bring to life cold, dark dungeons of Castle Dracula, the brutal Transylvania countryside, and the eerie chambers of the 19th century London. By day, you'll fight bloodthirsty bats and poisonous spiders in search for weapons. As the sun sets, beware, because now the Prince of Darkness himself arises and comes for you, as bat, wolf, even as an old man. Bram Stoker's Dracula, make no mistake, he must be stopped. And it's pretty solid. I mean, I do like it throws right in there. Hey, it goes straight for the jugular. So,
Yeah.
Definitely, if you parents didn't know what game they were getting, I mean, it's going to tell you right there. You're going to either get vetoed or they don't care what you play right off the bat.
Yeah.
When you go there at the supermarket and you say, "Hey, rent this for me, Mom," you're probably hoping, if she does care, that she doesn't read the back of that box.
Yep. That's very true.
So this game was released in 1993. Is actually released, I guess let's just say this. It was released pretty much from 93 to 95. I think about every system imaginable.
I'll say across all platforms.
Yes, like I'm going to tell you how many platforms it was, because it's more than just what you would think. Psygnosis, I think, was how you say it. They were the ones that developed it, and of course this movie was Sony property, so it was published by Sony. It was based off the movie, which the movie was based off the movie was in 92. The novel by Bram Stoker was in 1897. This was released. Let me get a big breath for this.
All right.
The NES, the SNES, the Game Gear, the Master System, the Mega Drive, the Genesis, MS-DOS, Sega CD, and the Amiga.
Of course, the Amiga.
So, I mean, when I'm thinking of it, I'm thinking, okay, it's probably on your Super Nintendo, your Sega, and maybe a handheld, but my God.
It covered all of them.
Everybody really wants to drag Bram Stoker's Dracula. They make every dollar they can off of it. And one thing that was, I thought about saving this for, there wasn't a whole lot of fun facts. I was going to save this, but I think it's more information we need ahead of time. There was, most of the versions that came out were action platformers, just like the Super Nintendo one. There were 2 different versions. The Sega CD and the Amiga was kind of like beat 'em ups. The Sega CD one actually had really good graphics, is what it looked like. The gameplay got beat up really bad. That might have been one of the worst reviews. And the MS-DOS version, which I think was, ironically, I think it said it came out in 1995, of all things, was a first-person shooter. So, I mean...
Was you throwing your sword the entire time?
Well, I was sitting there, and the first thing I think of, you're talking 95 first-person shooter, this got to be some Wolfenstein stuff going on, or some Doom, and I did happen just to stumble across some of the MS-DOS version, and it did at one point look like he had a little pokey stick, but I can go ahead and tell you it was very hard to watch. I fast-forwarded just in the video to see. I just wanted to see what an enemy looked like. It was very Wolfensteinish, Doomish.
Yeah.
Not as good as probably, maybe in between, I'd say. But there was a point where they were shooting a gun. That was about as cool as it looked. It looked like the walls were really close in together. But anyways, This is a Super Nintendo podcast, and I think they all probably got about the same equaling reviews. But so I guess just to get into what this, where the game comes in is you take the role as Jonthan Harker, which I think that's on all the platformers.
You're playing Keanu Reeves,
which is what the Keanu Reeves character. And basically, even though it's a platformer, to me it's kind of a find the exit game. And you got the controls are okay. I mean, it's uses 3 buttons really. You move. And it's got a jump, an attack, and then I think it's called missile or whatever.
It's a throwable.
So basically, you got a knife that you can attack with. You can jump, and then you got your special weapon should you choose to find one.
Your knife upgrades.
And basically, the levels that they're talking about, them being 7 levels. Basically, some of them are like the Romanian countryside, an rat-infested old village. Dracula's castle, his vaults, the Misty Catacombs. There's several locations in London, Lucy's Crypts, and Carfax Abbey. I'll just go ahead and say this. Not a big fan of the movie. I remember I watched this in movie theaters back in the 90s, and I didn't like it then. I've never watched it again, so maybe I didn't give it a fair shake. So, I don't remember a whole lot of what happened in the movie other than I just didn't like it. So I don't know how closely this game actually ties into it. I think it definitely, I think you probably paid for a license and then you made a game up to go along with it. I don't think the movie had any of the action that you're getting in the game, I guess is what I'm saying. So, is there anything before we get into what makes and breaks the game, Josh, that you want to add before getting into? Have I missed anything? Your thoughts on the movie or anything between the game and movie?
No, the movie itself was all right. I prefer the book personally, but of course I'm an avid reader, so.
Once again, I'm kind of thinking, this is a Dracula game. Sony, it's got some money in it, so I'm thinking kind of Castlevania, even though I'm not a Castlevania guy. I'm like, that's kind of the blueprint for a vampire game, right, Josh?
Yeah, that's definitely the blueprint.
I don't think that this is a Castlevania by any stretch of the imagination.
No, it's not.
But this game wasn't as bad as I thought it might be. There's a lot of games based off movies that are tremendously horrible, but let's just go ahead and talk about what makes the game great. One thing that I did like is the box art was pretty damn cool. It looked like that's one thing with the movie that I think the movie did well is there was a lot of really cool advertising. It kind of looked a little hip and all that, and the cover of the box just was basically I think there was a castle in the background, but it just had Bram Stoker's Dracula kind of written in that blood spilled script.
Yeah. And
I was just like, yes. Yeah, like you knew that this was exactly based off that movie. So I actually like the cover art, which, most of the time the cover art's just fine for me, but I thought this one actually was above average.
It reminded me of an old movie poster. Mm-hmm. And I can get behind that. I can get behind like an old movie poster as far as the box art goes, since it was based on the movie and the book itself.
Yeah, and I mean, at least the script that they used, I guess the font was the same as the movie. That's where it'd get a little weird if it wasn't,
Exactly.
And it was in the proper style of the movie. It was a very dark, the cover. It was a lot of blacks and dark blues and shades. So I thought that part was really cool. So if you love the movie, you'd see this, you'd just be like, oh yeah, give me some more, know.
I actually enjoyed the back of the box reading of the actual back of the box of it too. I mean, like it actually told you what you were getting into, which was a very synopsis of the book itself and movie. Well, which was really nice. And
that's one thing. I've got 2 things about the startup of the actual game. That one of them ties in with that. The first thing is I like the way the game started up. You kind of had the background, like some shadows. There was like some banners kind of flying in the wind. Lightning strikes, or like there's light, and then you see Dracula basically in his full medieval armor, I guess.
Yeah.
But I thought that was pretty cool. It was a good way to start it. But then when you start the game, excuse me, it basically starts out like a book opening up.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, so one thing that we don't get, and a lot of games, the Super Nintendo games don't have to do this, but the one thing we normally don't get is a story with our game. And so it did make a point between the back of the box, the way it started up. Even if you hadn't watched this movie, you kind of get an idea of what's going on. It's painting a picture.
Yeah.
So that was cool.
It's just not throwing you into it.
Yeah.
A little bit of depth for you.
And I'm sure, I can't remember, but from what I remember, I'm sure that's probably how the movie started too, is with a book opening or something like that. I think it did. And so that part was pretty cool because I thought the animation to start the game was really good. And then I wasn't as much a fan as how the book opened. I wasn't a fan of that, just me. But it was kind of cool. It was a smart way to set the story up. It wasn't like I hated it. It was just, it just wasn't my favorite thing.
It was neat.
Yeah, that was it. And so that was the startup. I really did like the screen. When it started up and, it was doing the shadows and stuff, it kind of reminded me a little bit of how Dragon View started up. I did have appreciation that it didn't just say, produced by Sony, start, select, that you got a little bit with it. Of course, this was later in the Super Nintendo cycle, which I'm going to come back around to on what breaks this game. But the other thing that I do like, it was a little odd the way it did, but it has an options menu. I do like it has an option menu.
At the very beginning.
Yes, and it means something. Just like, it reminded me of Mr. Nuts. You could actually set how many hits would it take. You could set how many lives you had. You could set what the difficulty was, which was trainee, normal, and hard. The only thing that was odd about it was it made you access the options menu.
You had to choose.
So you couldn't say you played this game and you never looked at the options menu. But I do kind of appreciate that because I'm sure that was somebody's job to set that up. And I would be like, damn it, you got to look at my work. You got to look at my work.
You have to see this, like no matter what. But also, that's a play on now games. How many games do you throw in there that before you even get to play, it makes you choose a difficulty level?
I'd say with today's games, what I see more of probably is the contrast and setting up the display.
Yeah, it's the contrast, the HUD. Do you want subtitles? Do you not want subtitles? I'm a subtitles guy because I got kids and they're loud and they're annoying at times. So I have to read. But yeah, it always lets you choose that stuff. And you also choose a difficulty. So like I said, I thought that was a really early take on nowadays video games.
And some of the stuff that just kind of comes as basically like coincidence, like how we play like 3 Amiga games within like 4 weeks or 5 weeks. It was kind of strange that Mr. Nuts was the first options menu that we played last week that you could actually choose lives and how many hits.
And then
this one has the exact same one. And it was like a good parallel to it, which is great because you know what I did? I cranked up all the lives. I done learned from Mr. Nuts, crank up all the lives, crank up all the hits. It didn't matter a whole lot because I still sucked at this game.
Kept the difficulty on medium. I didn't go out like a bitch. I didn't go easy.
Did you ever try the trainee?
No, I did not.
Okay. Well, we'll come back to this because there is a difference.
I tried veteran or hard or whatever.
Yeah, I think it was trainee, normal, and hard. Okay, so
I will say hard was hard. It was a well placed put on there.
We'll come back to the difference between trainee and normal because I tried both of those because I did not enjoy playing it on normal, and I'm like, let me see what trainee has got. Maybe I can figure some stuff out, and I did notice a pretty big difference.
Okay.
In the actual game itself, not just the gameplay.
I'll go ahead and throw this out there. I was going to keep this. I completed the game. This was the first game I played from start to finish on normal. It was easy. It wasn't too challenging for me. I think I only had to use 1 or 2 continues.
Okay.
And that was it.
One thing that I think this game did good too was I didn't think the controls were bad. They were pretty simple, primitive. It kind of reminded me of Mr. Nuts. You got 3 buttons. I mean, Mr. Nuts had a 4th button for run that was its own thing.
Jump slightly farther.
But, I'm not going to say that they were the best controls I'd ever felt, but like the control was responsive. Like when I was trying to move my guy, I mean, there wasn't a whole lot of like precise platforming like Mr. Nuts, you know. I mean, there was platforms you had to jump on, but it wasn't like so many small platforms and exact. And you know, basically, I spammed my attack button, and it seemed to do pretty accurate. And
I spammed the hell out of the attack button.
I guess for me, as long as the controls aren't laggy, I can deal with it. And I didn't think they were laggy. I mean, they weren't. I wouldn't say they're the best controls that I've ever felt, but I thought they were fine. It didn't bother me. It didn't stop me in any way.
Mine on my emulator were crisp. I'm talking about they were almost seamless.
And I think too that's probably a testament to you know, sometimes you can do more with less. Is like you know, there's a lot of times where we can say, hey, they should have used this other button that, you know, they had an unused button. They could have put this here. I think the controller mapping, everything was fine. It worked good for what you needed. Another thing was, it wasn't the strongest point, but I did like it. The level designs were interesting to me. It wasn't so much of like, you know, how you go through and you're like, oh, I'm in a catacomb and stuff. They were probably actually a little bit impressive for me. The one thing that I did like was, it wasn't my favorite, but I appreciate them shooting their shot. But like when you were the mist on the screen, I think it was in one of the crypts or catacombs, like it kind of looked like a, you know, pixelated fog there. Like it kind of obstructed your view. Not enough that, I mean, it was fine, but it was just like, well, at least they're trying something a little bit different. So some of the stages, I guess where it comes in, I think some of them, like the fog, I appreciate what they tried to do. I think they may have missed the mark on some of the stages, but the stages weren't necessarily small. You know, basically this game would it would lead you to Van Helsing, where he would have a thought bubble of a weapon, and then you could choose to go find that weapon or exit the stage. And so there were several different routes. People could play this differently. I did like that. And the one thing that I keep in mind is this was a game based off a movie that probably made, and at the end of the day, I'm sure I didn't look it up, but I'm sure it made a lot of money. I mean, like I say, I think it had Winona Ryder, Keanu Reeves, you had Francis Ford Coppola. I think George Lucas had something to do with it toward the end. So there was a lot of money invested in this. They could have very easily took a very safe route and just put plain levels together, and I don't think they did that. So I did appreciate that they didn't take a safe shot at it. You know, they actually tried. I like the level
routes. It was more maze feeling. Like I said, like you did have an arrow that told you which way to go, which was really useful at times, because some of those levels, I can't remember which one it was. I think it was the catacombs, whenever you first encounter the skeletons. Mm. And you could just walk off that first level where you start, and you'd fall a solid couple of levels, and then you had to work your way back up, go back and forth. So I did enjoy the arrow.
I will tell you, too, one thing that was, I guess, go back on the controls, when you were talking about like some of the catacombs, I mean, like I say, the platforming wasn't just side-scrolling. It did have depth levels. There's vertical. But I did feel like one thing that I hated, like, to go back to a Castlevania game, I hate climbing the stairs. I hate them. And in other games, the worst part is, like, what was it? No Escape, where you could fall off the map. I feel like when you were trying to drop down, it worked well.
It worked
like,
great.
You didn't accidentally fall down. Like, there wasn't, oh crap, I dropped off either the stage or I dropped a level. Like, you pushed down in the button. You didn't really have to. It was unnoticeable, which means it was good.
Yeah, which means that we were so used to it in nowadays video games that it worked seamlessly for us.
So, and I don't remember enough about the movie to know how many of these were actually involved in the movie. I'm sure there was a loose adaptation to that, but I did like it, because it was like, man, at the end of the day, they've got all this money in here. They could have just put some cheese stages together. And
they actually wanted to give you a good video game.
Yeah, it was definitely different. Like I say, some of them weren't my favorite. The fog, I thought it was kind of cool. Wasn't my favorite thing after I started getting into it, but it was just like kind of tipped the hat that they didn't take the safe way out. I did like that. And one thing that when you were in the game too, it was another thing they could have very well overlooked. I didn't think the stages I thought were the appropriate size. I didn't think a lot of them were just too long. I didn't think a lot of them were too short. But actually having the little checkpoints in there, which I call them fire pits. I don't know what they are. They're like a little torch stand.
Yeah, they're a little candelabra.
Yeah, and basically you just put an attack on them and it would light up, and then that was your checkpoint for the stage. Yeah. So that was one thing that was somewhat convenient, because there were parts of it that I didn't like. Part of the game that was hard to get past certain points, and I'm glad I had that checkpoint, because I wouldn't have wanted to have to get past like some of the other obstacles.
Not gonna lie, I didn't notice those were checkpoints until like level 4.
Well, the first time I hit it, I swear, one thing I didn't understand is why you had to kneel down. It seemed like to get everything done. So I'm over there trying to kneel. I'm like, this thing looks different. There's something new about it. Because there was a lot in the background that didn't matter.
Yeah.
And I swear I attacked. I did it. I couldn't get it lit up. And then like later on, I accidentally lit one up like a stage later. And I'm like, oh, okay. I don't understand. It didn't work the first time.
Yeah.
But it wasn't really outlined. Hey, this is a checkpoint.
No.
They should have did it more like, your Sonic the Hedgehog, where when you pass it, the thing spins around. Like, I would love to walk past it and then it just lit up on fire.
Some type of animation would have worked.
Even if it just simply lit up a flame, that would be fine.
I found them and I hit them. I thought they'd done something in the stage.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know they were a checkpoint until after I had to hit a continue. And I'm like, oh, that's a checkpoint.
And one thing I did see that there was a lot of people that didn't like is when you died, how quick it started you immediately after. I kind of liked that.
I did too. There was no wait.
Now, when you went to the checkpoint, it panned all the way back across the stage to that checkpoint. That part, I didn't care. It wasn't pretty. It kind of hurt my eyes. It was a little weird. But at the end of the day, I don't want to have to spend 6 minutes watching myself die and getting restarted and throw me back in. That's cool. Now, sometimes, I wasn't ready, but you kind of get used to it. After you die, and you're going to die a few times, pretty quick, learning the game is like, I'd just rather jump back in it. And I've seen a lot of people were just like, there's no reaction time, you're immediately back in it, and that was what a lot of people were putting in what they dislike. I like that part.
I enjoyed it. I really did, just because of the simple fact it was nice. It like I said, now games, you do it, if you die, there's a whole load scene with some smart ass quip of, hey, did you know that your shield can block? Yeah, I do. I don't want to use it. Or maybe you should dodge whenever the indicator's red, because that's a non-parryable attack or something like that.
I've only got one more thing that I did like about the game, and I'll leave it if you've got more to add, but the bosses weren't exactly hard, but I didn't think they were just cheese easy. Like, every boss had a pattern, and it didn't take too long to figure out what the pattern was, which made them, I ain't gonna say easy, but it made them normal difficulty to me. I was okay with it. There ain't nothing worse than getting to a boss stage and it's just a son of a bitch, I don't think if you couldn't figure out the pattern, you were going to have a long day at the shop. I thought the bosses, they were probably, in my opinion, I thought the bosses were easier than the stages, but I like the bosses. I think they were appropriately rated to battle against.
So, with that being your last thing, this is a 2-hit for me. This is a positive and a negative to this game. Okay. So if you're done with your positive, I'll say what I want, and I'll immediately pick it up with the negative side.
That's all I got. So you hit me with your last positive, and then tell me what breaks this bastard.
Okay. The positive for me is, like you said, the bosses weren't too difficult. They were level appropriate. I enjoyed that. I liked that. The downside for me was I think they were too predictable.
Okay.
They all had 2 attacks, and that was it. And there was such a big buildup of to when they would attack, and even then the attacks were predictable, but they weren't randomized. It was this attack,
The first boss you get it. That's the perfect example. He's got a whip. I'm whipping it out. It's going to outstretch toward you, and then the one I'm whipping down. So literally, all it would take is like 2 hits, and you can figure it out.
Yeah, like I said, way too predictable. There wasn't like long whip, low whip. It was long whip, low whip. Long whip, low whip, and it was on repeat.
Now the one thing, and it didn't bother me because, like I say, I wasn't like, I'm not going to say this isn't rewriting the great American novel because it was based off a novel, not an American one. But I didn't think that you could have inserted boss 5 for boss 3, and I think they were about the same. That was the one thing, is like you could have changed the bosses in any order, and I think they were all, as you say, predictable. They were probably as equally easy to beat one as the other one. So it wasn't like awesome. I'd say the one that I probably disliked the most was fighting, I guess, the brides or whatever they were, the 3 girls that flew around the screen. They were probably my least favorite, but they weren't bad either.
My only one that I had the most difficult with was Old Man Dracula. Because the only reason why I had a problem with it is he had a shield. Mm-hmm. And then he had a throw attack.
I didn't make it to Dracula, so.
Well, the shield was far enough away where you couldn't just stand at the shield and swap at him.
Right.
So you had to move in and hit him. Well, during that time, if you can't be greedy, heaven forbid you try to get that second attack in, because then you take damage.
That is one thing I did find out with a lot of the bosses, is you couldn't get greedy.
You couldn't get greedy.
You just had to be patient. It's the same thing over and over.
It was a set.
Yes.
And if you got greedy, you took damage.
It wasn't like you were playing a chess match. You were playing checkers, but you just had to wait your turn to move.
Exactly. That's all it was. And that was honestly the thing for me about the bosses, is back on the positive side of them, I liked it. They were level appropriate. They went good. They were easy. Downfall, way too predictable.
So here is the first thing that I've got that I stand on a hill with about what breaks this game for me. And it's probably one of the bigger things that I have to move past, is it's based off a crappy movie. I hate this movie. I hated it when I watched it in the theater. I've never thought about ever wanting to watch it again. I was sitting there thinking while I play this game, I'm like, the movie can't be as bad as I remember. Maybe I need to rewatch it. And I'm like, no, there's no way that I've formed such an opinion and I'm wrong. For my taste, I can't be wrong.
How old was you whenever you watched the movie?
Now, I'm going to guess, and I can't remember, the movie probably came out in 92. I was probably in about 6th or 7th grade.
Okay.
So I was old enough that I think, if I'm remembering correctly, I might have probably been 7th grade, because I think my brother, we went like, maybe it was one of those Christmas evening movies we went and watched.
It was a blockbuster hit, so it came around the holiday.
And I just remember watching it. Now, I don't remember watching commercials or trailers I don't remember a whole lot about it other than watching the movie, and I didn't like it. Because, I guess you got to dumb it down. If you're going to give me... Vampires aren't my favorite monster anyway. When you say vampires... I don't want those sparkly guys.
Now it's all sparkle.
I was originally, werewolves was my thing. And then...
Twilight ruined that too.
Yeah, then I went to zombies because they kind of ruining that as well. So I do like my zombies. I like my traditional ones. But like, as far as a vampire movie, if I want to go watch a vampire movie, I want to watch something. And it's not just using it as an example, as an Underworld. You're getting... some action in there.
Blade is also a solid choice.
I felt like I'm watching a drama. I don't want to watch a vampire drama. I don't want to watch, what's that damn little teen show? The Vampire Diaries or whatever. I don't want to watch that. I want to watch vampires ripping people's necks out.
I will stand by this, and I hate myself. The Vampire Diaries is a pretty solid show.
Oh my God. We got to move on. I can't even. So
I'm just saying that maybe you're too young for the taste. Maybe it's changed since then.
I doubt it. I will never watch this movie again. Like, I just can't see myself going back to it. I thought the movie sucked. Now, maybe the book, I don't know the book, maybe it was great, maybe the book sucked. At the end of the day, this is when we went and we talked about No Escape, and everybody talked about how bad that game was, and I'm like, that is a good game off a shitty movie.
Yeah.
This is a bad movie. I feel like the game was probably a little bit better than the movie. I mean, it was hand in hand, you know. I feel like everybody's going to beat up on No Escape when that game was a lot like the movie.
Yeah, if you played the game like the movie, it made sense.
Yes, if you never watched the movie, it's just, I mean, I ain't going to say it isn't garbage anyway, but you would have no idea what the hell is happening.
Yeah.
In this game, you could figure it out, but it was just off a crappy movie. I don't know how you make a game off a movie I absolutely hate and make me enjoy it, I guess.
To me, there's 3 stages to my curve because I read the book. The book, I absolutely enjoyed. The movie is a terrible rendition of the book, but the video game is a great rendition of the movie.
Now,
and I'm with you. I think the game itself is good. The movie, for what it was, is okay. Book, by far, is amazing.
Now, I can tell you this, and this is, I guess, resentment I bring into this game. I couldn't have told you that I can't even remember that Winona Ryder or Keanu Reeves or the Anthony Hopkins. I couldn't have told you who acted or directed this movie before I started looking into this. This is how much of it I have purged from my mind. But I will tell you the other part that is not related to the movie, that is just strictly what the game put in my head that I cannot get past.
Okay.
Is the Keanu Reeves character that we play is Jonthan Harker.
Yep.
I will stand on this mountain and you tell me what's on his head. What is on his head? You know what it reminds me of? I felt like I was running around like Rick Moranis off Ghostbusters. After he gets possessed and they put like that stainless steel colander on his head. I felt like I was freaking Rick Moranis running around. Like, I don't know how, I don't know if they were trying to make it look like Keanu. I don't care what it was. But I'm like, I feel like I'm a dumbass with a colander on my head running around, and I couldn't get past that. Like, I hated that sprite.
The hair was not renditioned good at all.
And maybe it was just hair, but it was like, man, it looked like he had a little freaking helmet on.
He could have had a helmet. Who knows?
Well, apparently they had some kind of either stainless steel or silver helmet back then, and he decided that...
It was iron.
Okay, iron.
Polished.
So he was just shined up, too, I guess. And a little barkeeper's friend rubbed on there.
Spit shine.
The whole time, I'm just like, this is like damn small Rick Moranis with damn Egon trying to figure out what's wrong with him after he's Zool or whatever. And that's exactly what it reminded me of as Ghostbusters, which... 100 times better movie than Bram Stoker's Dracula.
I agree with that.
So, a couple of other things that I'm going to stand on. I ain't going to say I stand on a mountain. I think you'll probably agree with a lot of these. 2 things with the enemies. It wasn't fun other than the bosses. I enjoyed the bosses. I didn't have any enjoyment of fighting any of the enemies. Like, okay, the rats were fine, the bats were okay, but like the enemies were fun, but like they just weren't fun because I guess this is going to go off onto like a 3-point tangent. Is they weren't fun because all you had was this little damn knife to fight with. But hey, Van Helsing is going to tell you where all these weapons are, and these weapons are bullshit because they're good. But number one, you got to track all the way across the level and find one. The other thing is then like, hey, I got the shotgun that somehow sprays a 5-shot spray that bounces off walls. I got 4 shots or 6 shots. I literally only get to use this. Like I had to go across the whole level. Oh, you would think, hey, at least give me unlimited ammo for this level. No, you only get like 4, 5, 6 shots. And then once they're not fun to battle, and once you get these weapons that I feel like are way overvalued, like I've not watched any speed runs, I didn't watch any walkthroughs. I would imagine that everybody just uses their freaking knife in this game.
100%, I did.
And yeah, there is no reason I would want to go through the level just to get my shotgun with 5 shots in it. But then, as soon as you've beaten the enemy, you better know where the hell you're going because they respawn immediately.
Yep.
And I did not like that they respawn so quick. Like, I'm fine with the respawn, but, like, literally, there were the spots, like, the first thing I noticed is, like, when you're in the bar, where the guy's, like, throwing the bottle. Like, as soon as that bottle...
I hated him. He irritated me so much.
And so, you know, I mean, there's I don't mind the respawning, but I'm like, man, you need to give them more time because it was so immediate. I don't know how many times, like, I'm trying to figure out what I do, and I stop, and I'm like, oh, there's a skeleton with a sword coming to kill me because I forgot it exited the screen. There's an enemy coming after me.
Like I said, I'm a hoarder whenever it comes to stuff like that. So I only tested out the other weapons, as you put it in parentheses, the missiles.
Yeah.
I tested them out, but besides that, I never used them. I spammed my sword so much because it done everything. There wasn't a need to use your dynamite, your shotgun, or anything like that.
Yeah, and I feel like it was kind of like Dragon View, where, hey, you're going to put... Maybe there's a dragon in the game. I don't know. I don't care enough to find out. Never seen a dragon. You give me a button that says missiles. Now, I didn't beat the game. I didn't get no damn missiles. Like, if you tell me there's a missile button, I want a missile. Like, I don't know what the hell he's going to use. Maybe it's a firecracker. And I get it.
Dynamite.
They could have just called it, well, probably. You could have just called it special attack.
Throwable.
Secondary. Throw, yes. And then, let's just go ahead and roll it on. You know the one thing I hate? I hate Spocks. The gotcha traps, as people call them. I hated those. And that damn catacombs, getting past them damn Spocks that keep popping up, it was so aggravating. Like, the first time I did it, I went through there just flawless, stopped on a dime, moving through it, and I'm like, this ain't nothing. The next 12 times, continue or two later, I can't get past them. And so there was some crap where you're just randomly walking and then a Spock just shoots up from the ground. Like, okay, I'm not going to say... It
was meant to do that.
The levels are harder than the boss.
Yeah.
Like, you're going to take damage. I am, because all I got is this little knife, and sometimes it takes 2 hits on something that's running toward me.
Why didn't you get your sword?
And I didn't care enough about it.
It was level 1.
Yeah, I didn't care enough about it. But at the end of the day, I felt the gotcha trap part of it was unnecessary. I didn't feel like, and even when you're going to put these Spocks, and I'm not talking like the normal Spocks I hate. These are the ones that are randomly just shooting up and down out of the ground.
These aren't your instant kill Spocks.
Yes, but put 2 or 3 of them there. There were like alleys where there was like 8 of them in there, and I'm like, that's too much right there. That's too much. Like, I got a bat flying over here. There's a rat running around my ankles. They all do the same amount.
There's a skelly coming at you.
Don't give me these damn freaking blades just dropping out of the ceiling in the ground. I did not like that at all. I hated that. I feel like that was the worst part of every level that I played, was what I guess people refer to as the gotcha trap. I hated that with a passion.
It's a trap. It's the trap.
It was the most unenjoyable. That's where I'd get stuck at. I didn't like playing the same bullshit trap over and over and over and over.
That didn't faze me.
The other part, then, that I felt like was equally as bad is, I don't know what you would call it. I guess you would call it the hitbox. I felt like it was a little off.
It was larger than what it should have been.
And where that would be like the first boss, which was the dude with the whip. I know the pattern, and then all of a sudden I'm taking damage. And I'm like... There was the fine line of, you couldn't get up in his face like where you could smell his breath, but you had to get, like, you couldn't just get it where you thought you needed to be to hit him. It was like 1 step farther. Yeah. But if you went a step and a half farther, you were running into him and taking damage. Yeah. And so I didn't really run into as many issues with like a hitbox until I got to the bosses, it seemed like. But it was like, that was just a little off, but it was, and I can see how that's something small, but it was very noticeable.
Well, see, me. I tested the hitbox theory because I noticed the same thing with a couple of the bosses. Dude, on those spot traps, dude, I would be sniffing them, and I wouldn't take damage. It's like they rescaled the hitbox for the boss battles to make them a little bit more difficult versus how predictability of them. So, I don't know what happened there, but...
So I've got two more things that I didn't like. Probably I've got maybe other. I'd say probably my biggest one was it's based off a movie I absolutely hate. That's probably my biggest one.
That.
Yeah, but I've got one with the game that I feel like is pretty legit. Now, the one thing, this was more of a letdown, but I thought the levels were pretty cool. Now, mind you, talking a vampire movie, sure, let's throw some spiders out. Some, you're throwing the skeletons. You're getting the normal stuff. Like, where I thought some of the levels were ambitious, you got the same basic characters that you expect to fight. But with the way the level was designed, the one thing I didn't like was I didn't have any enjoyment of battling the normal enemies. I didn't think any of it was fun. I mean, some parts were just okay, but it was just like, here we are in a level, and then there'd be like a part where you're going vertical and there's a spider on every little ledge, and I'm like, oh, you got to be kidding me. This sucks. It's not like, oh my God, how am I going to get past this? Like maybe a Crash Bandicoot or something like that. And the thing that I felt like it took away from the level, because it was like, whoever spent the time to do all the enemies, I'd just rather run from them than fight them. It was kind of the same thing as No Escape. It was like, there's no point. Like, if I fight them, they're going to respawn immediately, it seems like. I don't have fun battling it. Let me just jump them and keep running.
Yeah.
So I didn't think the enemies were fun. I thought the bosses were fun. I like the bosses, but just the normal run of the mill enemies, I didn't care for.
I get that.
And this, to me, I saved the best for last.
That's based on a shitty movie?
Yes. Did you ever die and not continue, or not have a continue available?
No, I did not.
Okay, this is the worst part of the game. Basically, it drags it out into what seems as a 10-minute... Like, you would think, hey, continue. And I don't know if you only get one continue, because I continued, and then I didn't come back in here, and the next thing I know, it says continue, and it says no. I think I accidentally hit the button and hit no.
Yeah.
And then it throws me through a credit, and it shows a book that opens up, and it's got the Keanu Reeves character laid back, like he's had his blood sucked, like he's on the ground, like kind of laid off a step. And you're like, oh, okay, that part's fine. And then it started going, based off a movie by Francis Ford Coppola. And there was some guy whose name was F-U-C-H, Fuse, Fucks, whatever it's going to be. And it's like, okay. And I'm sitting there the whole time hitting the start button. I'm hitting the A button. And it's not doing nothing.
Was it like a credit scene?
Yes, it was like a credit scene that you couldn't get past. And I didn't time it because I was losing my damn mind. Like, imagine just watching credits for 10 seconds. How boring that is. I felt like this went on forever. It may have only been a minute. It felt like 10 minutes. I turned it off. I reset it. I could not go any farther. Because I'm like, why will you not let me hit start and enter a new game? And I'm like, you did so well with... You've got people complaining that when you die, it's making you start immediately. But by God, when the game ends, it's like watching this crappy movie all over again, watching the credits of a crappy movie. And it was that I was just like, I'm losing my mind. I'm going to have to get up and push the reset button because I don't feel like watching this. It was a bit much. I think, I don't know if for Coppola or somebody had to sign off on it, but I feel like they were like, no, I want you to make a 3-minute credit scene that has my name on it. That's what I felt like it was, and it was it pissed me off. It pissed me off. Worst part of the game was when you hit no on continue.
I could see that because whenever I beat the game, there was a very long credit list that ran too. I don't know if it was the same or not. I'd assume it would be, but I'm assuming there wouldn't be the picture of the dead Keanu Reeves character laying there, because he wasn't on mine. It showed him escaping pretty much.
Whoa! I didn't know that we were a badass and we beat this game, Josh. I get it, brother.
But I said the credit scene didn't bother me because I blatantly ignored it. I didn't care. Like if it was a credit scene that I needed to pay attention to, like say an Avengers Marvel movie or something like that, I'd pay attention. But this here, I'm like, nah, I'm good. So I just.
This was just,
let it roll.
It was basically like it popped up and it said, you suck, you die. Okay, let me restart. Oh, well, great. I got what seems like 10 minutes of credits before you, like, I'm hitting every button imaginable. And you know what it's like when you're hitting button or like your mouse is unresponsive. Yeah. You're just like, you keep pushing it like 100 more times. And you're just like, it was like the equivalent of road rage, but the Super Nintendo version. It's like, what is wrong with you?
Well, maybe, okay, now just hear me out here. Hear me out. Maybe that was punishment for being so shitty at the video game due to the creator.
I don't agree with that because I probably paid $10 back in the day to watch a shitty movie. And so I feel like I paid my pittance. And then if you actually either rented or bought this video game, then I feel like you paid that pittance once again. So I don't think that you need to rub my nose in I may have peed on the floor and I understand that's wrong. Don't rub my nose in it. So for me, that's what broke all I have that broke the game. Is there anything that you want to add?
No, I don't. I said you hit the nail on the head about the enemies, the stages. The stages were designed to be difficult, more difficult than the bosses. The enemies respawned extremely quick. Like, you had to kill them and move on. There was no safe place for you to just stand if you wanted to. Which I'm fine with, if you knew that ahead of time.
I just think what's so frustrating is I did like the controls of the game. And I felt like some of the stuff, a lot of these games that are either cheaper or unlicensed or something like where they may have, put a lot of money toward the budget of just getting the license. They nailed some of that.
They did.
And then it was just like some of the stuff like the hitbox and all that in the grand scheme is probably something small when you're programming the game. But it was just, that part kind of broke it for me. So to go into some of I have probably one thing I guess I would call as a fun fact that I've just discovered while talking to you that you haven't noticed that I did. So I'm going to save that.
Okay.
But so all the games. So this was released on every freaking system, it seems like, under the sun.
Yeah.
All of them were pretty poorly rated. I think probably the one thing I seen was people were the only argumentative point was which game is worse, the Super Nintendo or the NES version. And I think people probably say the NES version was better than the Super Nintendo. But there wasn't a whole lot. It was a better of the worst top thing.
Yeah.
There wasn't a whole lot of there was zero, this is a great game. I'll just tell you that. So they were all rated pretty poorly. And I've kind of touched on the Sega CD version, which probably has the best graphics. The graphics are actually pretty impressive.
But you said it had the worst gameplay.
It had one of the worst freaking reviews on it.
Yeah.
Because like some of the parts, and I was watching some of the gameplay of it, people would jump and it would be like they'd be walking across a platform trying to jump onto like a broken bridge, and they would legitimately land on a board and then fall through the bottom. And then the one thing that they were doing that which drew me to PlayStation was they had the cinematic cutscenes. But the cutscenes were so pixelated and blurry, it was hard to tell what the hell was happening.
Okay.
The MS-DOS version that came out in 95, I did have a actual review. I know it seems like I never find reviews that say, hey, this is a great game, revolutionary. They're always bad reviews. And I enjoy reading somebody crapping on someone else's work.
Yeah.
And it says, it was reviewed by Computer Gaming World.
Okay.
And they stated that it appears that the developer Psygnosis or whatever their name is must have spent most of their Dracula budget on acquiring the movie license, leaving little for game development and packaging. Which I will argue, maybe the MS-DOS version, the packaging sucked. I thought the packaging was pretty sweet on the Super Nintendo version. I enjoyed the packaging.
It was a movie poster.
All right, so I've got 3 things left for us, Josh. There is speed runs on this.
Okay.
There is, I guess, this one fun fact, and then we got our price charting. Actually, I'm going to say I got 2 fun facts.
Okay.
Which do you want first, brother?
Well, price charting's always the end, so that's always a given. Give me the speed runs first.
Okay. I laughed when I seen some of these speed runs. Well, okay, let me rephrase it. I'm going to have to give you one fun fact now, and I'll come back to the other one.
Okay.
Because the fun fact that I looked for it, man, they were giving me all these facts on Dracula, the movie, and it was just like the sunlight hitting a vampire of me trying to read crap about
you were immediately going, no!
Yes, that was exactly it. So, when I tried to know normal, I didn't get very far, so I flipped it over to trainee. And in trainee, the first thing I notice is I go through the first stage. And I guess one thing, too, I did forget that I did like about this game, I felt like getting to the boss, like in Mr. Nuts, I felt like the game, you had to go through too many levels to get to the boss.
Yeah.
I thought they hit that nail on the head, like
Finish
a level of a half or whatever. And
finish the level, then it's run up to the boss.
So the first thing I noticed is when I went to trainee, because I sucked at this game, is like I go through the first part, and then all of a sudden I'm not on the second stage, the same second stage that I was on.
You immediately on boss battle?
No, I'm just at a different stage, and I'm like, I'm not in these catacombs that beat the hell out of me. And or the foggy place or whatever. Next thing I know, there's like a horse skeleton. I'm like, where the hell am I? And so I'm trying to go through it, and then next thing I know, I'm battling the brides, and then next thing I know, I'm in like a different stage. When you play it on trainee, you don't play all 7 stages, so there are less stages. That's why at first I'm like,
oh, that's cool.
At first I'm like, there's a new layer to this. The first thing I thought was like, I've completed this level differently. I've did something. I'm on a different path.
Yeah.
No, they skip stages. So when you play it on trainee, it condenses the game. So I did, in fact, beat the game on trainee. But at the end of trainee, it shows Dracula, like a little cinematic scene of him just laid back. And then he disappears into like a vapor of blood dust or whatever.
Yeah.
And then basically it gives you like this whole spiel where it comes up and then it says, maybe you should try the game on normal or hard. And I'm like, and so I was like, the game was literally, it took me, I was just going about my business, just exploring, just checking this game out. I beat it in less than 30 minutes on trainee.
Wow.
And I'm like, I enjoyed it way more on trainee than I did normal or hard. So if you never played it on trainee, you have no idea that literally you can play the whole game in like 1/3 of the time.
Let's say it took me roughly, I think, 2.5 hours to beat.
Okay. Well, that's good. So I didn't want to, the reason I want to tell you that fact is because the speed run has under trainer, normal, and hard.
Oh, that's interesting.
And so there is something on here that I'm cracking up over. Maybe it's just me. So we'll go with hard.
Okay.
So, and this will kind of tell you, I guess, how tough the game is, how condensed it does once you get to trainer.
I played it on hard, and that was damn difficult.
And I'm going to tell you how long ago and who broke the records.
Okay.
Because I feel like if you played a game like this and you broke this record and you did all you need to do to put it online, you got to be recognized. You got to cite your sources.
Yeah.
On hard, a fellow or fellette named Linka Meister.
Okay.
7 years ago.
Okay.
The only speed run on hard.
Okay.
Beat the game in 19 minutes and 43 seconds.
No.
So that's pretty impressive.
That's extremely impressive.
I didn't beat it on trainee in that amount of time. So on normal, and I think to me this kind of, I don't know the difference between normal and hard because I didn't play it on hard. On normal, Gug and Sully.
Okay.
This was 2 years ago, so this is pretty recent.
Okay.
He ran a speed run on normal at 17 minutes and 4 seconds. So I'm not taking away from somebody beating this game in 17 minutes. That's pretty impressive. But I would imagine going from normal to hard
is a vast
That was
difference.
literally almost about a 2 minute and 40 second difference. So if as tough as this game was for me to add 2 minutes and 40 seconds to play it on a harder difficulty, I think that kind of puts in perspective Lincoln Master, how good. Either way, you're beating the game in less than 20 damn minutes.
Yeah.
Tip of the hat. So I don't know which will impress you more. 3 years ago, it was beat on trainee, and I don't know what will impress you more, the time or who beat it. The time on trainee, and this shows you how much more condensed this game is, was 2 minutes and 34 seconds.
Wow. Give me a good name. I want a good name.
Let's go ahead and rewind this back. Do you remember somebody by the name of Lay Hawk?
No!
Lay Hawk from Mr. Nuts has ran a 2 minute. Now, there was another person that had a 2 minute and 34 second. I just pulled the number one up.
Yeah.
But when I seen Lay Hulk, I remembered immediately from
Yeah,
Mr. Hulk.
Lay Hulk.
The
That's
French
awesome.
Hulk. And so.
Or Spanish Hulk.
Or that.
Who knows?
Or, I don't know what else it could be.
Los Angeles Hulk.
It could be that. But either way, Lay Hulk is back in the record books on a speed run. But literally 2 minutes, I could see somebody doing that. I couldn't do it. I mean, I think if you were really good at this game and you practice, and if you enjoyed this game and you beat it the way you did, if you said you beat it in 4 minutes, I'd believe you. 2 minutes is kind of crazy, but that was how condensed the training part of the game
I didn't know
was.
that.
Now, the only other thing that I have that I thought of right before we sat down to record this says, do you know who is in this game?
Keanu Reeves.
No, it's in the actual game. It kind of goes with current pop media. Do you remember who Dracula's faithful servant is?
Renfield.
Yeah,
Renfield.
We're getting a freaking Renfield movie
We
because
are.
you called me and told me this last week.
With Nicolas Cage's vampire.
I have a
As Dracula.
feeling I'm going to take this to the bank. Nicolas Cage's Renfield is going to be better than Bram Stoker's Dracula. Gotta be.
Maybe.
I just laughed because when you told me, or I can't remember if you called me, told me, texted me about Renfield.
It was recorded in our last episode.
Yes, and I'm like, and then he is in this game. I was just like, oh my god! I can see Nicolas Cage, the memes, like,
Yeah.
Renfield.
Renfield.
And so that did crack me up too. I just thought about that as you got to the house here. So we're going to wrap this up. We're going to throw it over to price charting, Joshua.
Okay.
Well, we're not going to wrap this up. We also got to rank it, but we'll be moving pretty quick. Loose copy of Dracula. Bram Stoker's Dracula. Not just Dracula. Not just Castlevania. Bram Stoker's Dracula.
I'm going to say this. With this being Bram Stoker's Dracula, this ain't had to be mass produced.
Well, my thing is it was made in like 93, late in the life cycle, which is another dig on it. It was like, there was so many better vampire games like Castlevania out there before this came out.
There was, but I'm looking at this. Like I said, it's off of a movie. It's Bram Stoker. It's the beginning of the vampire.
I think this came out in the same year as like Mr. Nuts and some of these other games, but I think the difference is you had Sony behind it, and look how many game systems this got pimped out to. They're going to churn these things out, and they're probably making them for pennies on the dollar.
Exactly. Mass production. That's what I'm going with. If you tell me that this loose cart, used loose cart, is more than $5, there's no way.
It is more than $5.
Really?
Yes.
There's no way because of it being out everywhere. I would assume, okay, if it's more than $5.
Now think of this. I probably say a lot of the $5 games and some of the sports games. And even though, to me, I would probably rather play some of the sports games as this, I think you kind of got the bottom tier of sports games as bottom B. This is probably like a bottom A game.
See, and I was thinking that too, but I figured with Bram Stoker, that would put a different take on it. I think that would make it at the bottom tier B because it was mass produced. So, okay, if it's, I say $8.
Pretty close. Loose copies I seen on eBay was going between $9 and $13.
Okay.
You know, this is shipping, everything figured in. Price charting had it rated at $12.38. So
that's not bad, I guess.
A complete copy, what would you put that at, Joshua?
I say a solid 30, 35.
I would just go ahead and tell you, too, other than the complete copy, price charting the past few weeks with eBay has been pretty spot on. I'm typically a straight eBay guy, but you're a little low. A complete copy on eBay, from what I've seen, was $45 to $49 pretty consistently.
That's not terrible.
Price charting had it at like $40-something. I can't remember. It was the low 40s.
Okay.
So not bad. I mean, you're if you tell me there's not a lot of Super Nintendo games you can go pick up for $10 or complete copies, and I'm not a fan of this game, but if I ran across, if it's worth $45, if I ran across a complete copy of this for probably $30, I'd probably pick it up. You know, even though I didn't enjoy the game myself. So new, I will tell you, eBay doesn't have any sold in the last 90 days that weren't graded. So I just wiped them off.
Yeah.
So I went with what people were asking and what Price Charting had. Price Charting said there's approximately 4 of them that are sold in new condition in a year. What would you think a new version runs?
I'd say $94, $95.
Not too far out in the range. Now, what I seen on eBay that wasn't sold was anywhere between $155 and $199. It's a new game, all holds barred, but at the same time, none have sold in the last 90 days.
Yeah.
These were listed. So there was only like 5 listings, and 2 or 3 of them were graded that were like stupid, like $400 and $500.
Yeah.
So I just purged them. So I'm guessing the ones that were $155 and $199 and $179 had been sitting there. They weren't all just listed last night. So none of them had sold. So that immediately tells me it's not worth $155. Price Charting, I kind of lean on where they're at. I would believe it. Price Charting had the new copies running about $129.
Really? Okay.
So at the end of the day, Josh, we're just going to call it $12. If I gave you this copy of Dracula, Super Nintendo cart loose, or I offered to give you $6, which would you take?
I'd take the card on this one.
Take the cart. Now, I collect, so I'd probably take the cart, but I would never play it again, in my opinion. So that's going to come down to where we're going to rank our games. We're on episode 11. So we got to find out if this is going to fall in the top 10 or out of it. Looking at it, I have a strong feeling it is a top 10 game because the bottom list is pretty bad. So where I've got you, Josh, is just a quick rundown. 1 through 10 goes Family Feud, number 1, Super Putty 2, Jeopardy Sports 3, Fatal Fury, Mr. Nuts, Roger Clemens, No Escape, Dragon View, Kid Cleats, and at number 10, Obidus. Where are you going to put Bram Stoker's Dracula?
Well, I would really like to redo my listings because it's a little unfair because of the whole, I love an RPG style game too. And it sucks that we haven't got any good ones. So, as my standing go, I would put Bram Stoker's Dracula right below Mr. Nuts because it's definitely better than Roger Clemens.
Oh, I agree with that.
For me.
Now, Roger Clemens, I've got it on the dead last of my list.
You do. But the reason why I rated Roger Clemens at 6 is because it's a sports game that I think I could eventually win in.
I won a game, Josh, and I still got it at number 10. It wasn't that fun. So you basically, you're nesting Bram Stoker's Dracula in number 6 between Mr. Nuts and Roger Clemens. So,
yes.
A rundown of mine, I've got Jeopardy Sports at number 1, Mr. Nuts, Dragon View, Family Feud, No Escape at number 5, Super Putty, Fatal Fury, Kid Cleats, Obidus, and number 10, the infamous Roger Clemens. I'm just going to tell you where I'm dropping Bram Stoker's. I didn't enjoy this game. I mean, it was okay. I put a higher value on a good game made off a bad movie than a decent game made off a really crappy movie, in my opinion. So I'm going to drop Bram Stoker's, ironically, into my number 6 spot, which goes below No Escape. I would rather play No Escape, and I've beat myself up thinking about, is No Escape better? And I think it's close, but I think No Escape is better. So I would definitely rather play it than Super Putty, Fatal Fury, Kid Cleats, Obidus, Roger Clemens. I'll go ahead and tell you this. I've got Bram Stoker's Dracula at number 6. I'm almost 100% positive this isn't going to be a top 200 game for me. Like, this one's going to continue to fall down the list for me.
And the only reason why you put it at number 6, let's be honest, is because you hated the movie.
I did hate the movie. I hated the movie a lot. That might be on me. I can't get past it. I cannot get past it.
That's just fuel to the fire.
I tried my best to get past it until I felt like it was Rick Moranis running around on the screen. And I'm like, nope, can't do it.
Yeah.
Can't do it.
Understandable.
All right, well, I guess we're just going to go ahead and wrap it up here on episode 11. So we're going to do a quick recording, see what we play on episode 12. But I guess we're done for this week, brother.
All right.
All right. See you.
See y'all.